Okay, so our problem of practice. Owsley County Elementary School needs a clear, aligned system of communication that supports our goal of moving into a standard-based grading system to prepare everyone for the next level of learning. Right now, we're using a primary scale, so we'd like to transition.
So at the beginning of the year, our administration team decided to all get together, and they went into what they called a war room, and they spent several days analyzing all the sources of data from attendance to map data to K-Prep, and they communicated with us that they discovered a huge grade inflation problem, that the grades our students were getting using our traditional grading scale were not matching the mastery level of the students and how they were scoring on the MAP test and the K-Prep test. So we needed to come up with a plan to close that gap and pretty much do away with that problem.
So our theory of action and what resources that we would use, and this is a plan. Ours is really to go into it this summer and train our teachers, and then our evidence won't really be till the end of next year. So basically we have a plan. And these are the resources that we're going to use. Our PLCs, so the teachers can collaborate with each other and talk about how we're going to use this grading-based system opposed to our other system. The newspaper to inform parents. ABRI is another team that we work with. It's Academic Behavior Response to Intervention. And we collaborate with them to show progress with our students. Jennifer Howard is a lady that we met, she's probably here today, at the last KVEC meeting that we had, and she had developed her own standard-based grading system. So we're going to get her to come this summer and help train our teachers in Owsley County, and so we'll know more about what to do. We've heard that she's really an excellent trainer for that. We're going to purchase the Robert Moranzo books for our teachers. He's supposed to have some excellent strategies. And then we will have to have tech support to transition our Infinite Campus from our traditional primary grading scale and letters to the standards-based grading.
So the support we need from our district team is to provide the time to have the PD that our teachers need, the resources that we will need to make it successful, such as we will probably have to have someone come in and help with the transition in Infinite Campus, use their walkthrough data to analyze how things are going and help us make adjustments as we need to along the way. We really need their support in connecting to the community, making sure parents understand the transition, because that will be a key part of whether this is successful or not. If parents are supportive and if they're on board and if they understand going from a letter grade to standards-based, it's a big jump. And we hope to incorporate the micro-credentials that are available too.
We need our principals to help protect instructional time, to help incorporate what we're using into our classroom with the new grading system. We're going to student-friendly learning targets, the I can statements, because your kids need to know, why are they at school today? What did I come for? What am I going to learn today? When I leave this class today, what am I going to know? This week, what does my teacher expect me to know? So the student-friendly learning targets need to be posted. Monitor teachers' data collection, monitor the use of common assessments, develop and use a PLC protocol, which is something that we definitely need to implement, because we were like you guys when you said that you went in there and you sit down. And he's like, well, what are we going to talk about today? And that's something that's like our kids. We want them to know what's expected of them and what they're going to learn. What are we going to do? What are we going to accomplish? So we need a protocol for that. Leads PLCs focused on grade level teams, analyzing student data and developing next step plans. Holds everyone to high standards.
And of course, teachers will be expected to be experts with their standards and not, look, now I think every teacher in our building has standards posted, but being really intentional about getting more specific with those learning standards and being really intentional about choosing the one critical standard that you want the students to master for that day. Just kind of taking that to the next level beyond just saying that we'll have standards posted, because we are already doing that. We want teachers to be responsible for maintaining data collection, and the data collection should include at least one summative assessment to prove that students have reached mastery. And we thought that may be important because our district has identified a grade inflation problem. So if we have this data collection, we can pull it out as evidence for why students are getting the marks that they are getting. Grade level teams will work together to develop common assessments that explicitly correlate to the critical standards for their grade level. So when we start to develop this exit criteria and our exit exams and our standards-based, we want to really delve deeply and decide what are the critical areas for our grade level. What should we expect kids to have at least 80% or set our percentage for mastery before we can say they're ready for the next level. And then we need a plan for what we're going to do with students that aren't reaching mastery after that first assessment. How will that work? How many attempts will they be allowed? And then we want teachers to also work through the standards-based grading micro-credential that is available.
Our community partners will use the public library, parent task force, grade level community projects, other communication venues, real-world writing applications, and conferencing with the students.
So our district has already put an emphasis on not wasting instructional time, teaching bell to bell, making sure you have an I-CAN statement for the day that you think is critical, and that your students, you don't just go over that at the beginning of class, but you refer to it constantly throughout your lesson. Exit ticket to assess where they're at the end of your lesson. Assessments for learning is aligned to standards-based grading criteria. We are trying to incorporate even more modeling of proficient work, showing the students, if they're proficient with that standard, what that looks like. And our first school-wide work session for math is scheduled at the end of this month. And we're then going to, all the math teachers in our district are going to work together to decide and establish what are our critical standards for our grade levels. When they leave our grade level, where do we want those kids? And which standards do they absolutely have to be mastered or have mastered before they can go on to the next level?
And of course, everyone is ready for the next level of learning. That is our outcome that we want to see. And that's what we have. Thank you.